In our most recent conversation, looking at the small catechism and getting to the heart of things, we most recently completed taking a look at the commandments. And the last several commandments, at first, all look like they have to do with my relationships with other people. Don't commit adultery, don't cheat on your spouse, and don't bear false witness against your neighbor. Don't even covet what your neighbor has. In other words, don't be envious of what your neighbor has, as well as don't steal. But we saw once again our older brother in the faith, Martin Luther, borrowing, you could say, from the insights from Jesus and places like the Sermon on the Mount, sees that even those commandments about my relationships with other people are really expressions of my relationship with God, right? That if I love and trust God above all things, then I can be content with what I have, and I don't have to be constantly defining myself in terms of how I compare to somebody else. And that so often the things that make us miserable in life are when we live our lives trying to compare how I have what I have compared to somebody else. Is my spouse more attractive, or is theirs more attractive? Am I happier with a new model or with what I have to settle for? Do I need to have bigger and better stuff, or a larger house, or other possessions? How easily the gifts that God gives us sour in our mouths because we're convinced it's just not good enough. And we feel like we will only have happiness if we get what somebody else has, only to discover that once we get whatever our neighbor had, they either have moved on to having something else and we're still envious, or that really was never about the stuff that made us content or happy in the first place. I mean, at first, these commandments can sound just like an awful lot of angry, sort of very stern rules. Don't steal, and don't lie, and don't cheat, except when we realize that our happiness, our real contentment, our joy isn't caught up in what we possess or how we compare to somebody else, we're actually set free to finally be content and to receive from God the good things God has put in our hands and in our lives. When we're able to receive the gifts that we already have, to take this day, the things God has put in my hands, my daily bread for the day, I can not only be content and find joy in whatever things are already in my hands to enjoy and to savor, but also I can realize that God is going to meet all my daily needs, right? I can actually live in a relationship of trust. I don't have to be constantly thinking, I need to get more, I need to get more, I need to get more. I can trust God will give me what I need. If we dare to trust that God really does know what we need and will provide what we need day by day by day, I don't have the need to keep taking from other people or even living my life with jealousy and envy of what they have. In fact, that allows us to do something else that Luther advises us to do in the Catechism. Not only to quit and to take what my neighbor has, but I can actively spend my energy helping my neighbor to take care of what they have, right? I can actually spend my energy helping to care for my neighbor's property so that my neighbor has a good fence in their yard around their garden, or so that my neighbor's front porch is taken care of, or their flag doesn't blow away in the wind, or their trash can doesn't get knocked over. We can spend our energy caring for our neighbors because I'm no longer defined by jealousy or envy about what they have or needing to compare myself to them. So many of the voices in the culture we live in want us to feel like our worth is tied up in, do you have more or better than what the next person has? And you can live that way for a while, but it is exhausting, and it turns out it never really lands us with contentment. Instead, what the commandments give us, what Luther would help us to see through the Catechism, is that it is possible to live a rich and full life right now with the people God has put in our lives, with the things God has given to us day by day, and without being poisoned with envy about what somebody else has, simply by receiving this day, the people and the things that come with it, as a gift from God. When we do that, it sort of changes not just our relationships with other people, it changes our relationship with God. And maybe instead of seeing God constantly sitting on some throne ready to throw a lightning bolt at us when we mess up, and instead seeing that all of our lives we are constantly being given the gifts that we need for life. God keeps giving them to us day by day by day. We come to see our relationship with God is defined as a gift of grace. The more we can recognize There's contentment to be found in appreciating and savoring what we have, what God has put in our hands. That's really what those last several commandments are all about, changing our perspective to receiving this day and its gifts as gift of grace. So I no longer have to be ruled by envy of pinning my hopes on, if I can only get what my neighbor has, then I'll be happy. But instead, discovering contentment right here, right now. That brings us through all the commandments, but we're going to keep working through the rest of the small catechism and seeing what a difference it makes to think about who the God is that we believe in. That's where we're going to be heading next Sunday as we begin looking at the creed in the small catechism. Join us along the way on Sunday mornings as we keep getting to the heart of things.